Alright, I'm back. Let's continue. Well, now that that's over and done with, I would like the sinners to come gather around here. Hohenheim places the sinners in a single file before him and began. Now, the regular checkup is complete. We finally have enough data to compare your pre-employment statuses to those of your current selves. Which means... Indeed, we are able to measure up your pre-employment combat capabilities as well. And what are your conclusions? Allow me to preface this by saying that there isn't much significance in establishing this particular hierarchy of power on a linear scale. Like I said, you're all equally mediocre at the present anyway, and... Oh, and there's plenty of significance, alright. We've all gotta know who's the big boss. While this is but a speculation of the worst-case scenario, we must know which of us has the most right and authority to lead the rest of the sinners in our case, in case our executive manager becomes, due to some unknown yet inexorable circumstances, unavailable. Hey, that's... I don't listen to anyone weaker than I am. What if there was a reason I was the first one asked to introduce himself? There was a burgeoning interest among the sinners to see which of them would be at the apex of the scale. Were they to be measured by the strengths prior to their employment? Hey, maybe before I lost my memories, even I... Dante, don't. It is interesting how every collective has the desire to get the clear picture of the pecking order. A negative expression of this desire may even lead to juvenile behaviors among children. For example, stealing their colleagues' lunches for meager reasons, such as scoring higher than they did on a test. You're not speaking from personal experience, are ya? Thus, I believe that trying to conceal the outcome of the test from you would be quite meaningless. Each of your placements in that line you're standing in signifies the very order you are so curious to know. I do not wish to waste any more breath on this subject. There was a long silence. And the sinners all simultaneously turned to look at the person standing in the foremost position of the line. This has to be the longest, most awkward, most loaded silence I've ever felt in my life. Much did I wish to hold shrouded in my fathoms, yet I yearn still to convey that we are all more than meets the eye. Yet there remains a certain abundance within my heart. Perhaps the tests of this day paint a picture of both of my qualities. Thus spoke I, Yu-song. Yu-song. I'll place trust in the faith that all of you shall one day sprout wings as I have. Yu-song, it's the other way around. Ah yes, the line was made from my point of view. From here, the sinner wielding the oversized lance is the one in the front of this line. Well, you said some cool words though. We got this, right, Yi-song? Well, 'tis quite the bashful occasion to be the center of such fervent attention of one such company. I want to say fervent is the right word. Worried, maybe. I shall be vigilant. No one seemed to have any objections or doubts about who the strongest sinner was, given the earlier event. On second thought, it appears that it would be best if we left the command to Ishmael as we have done so far. Otis mumbled through gritted teeth. Forsooth, I am in agreement. I am more partial to roles as a defending fixer or a squire. It is oft the case that such side characters enjoyed greater popularity since time immemorial. Very happy to see this discussion not coming to blows. Now are we ready to move on from this? Wait a minute. Aren't we all forgetting something pretty important? That's just how the world works, Craig. No one remembers anyone between the first place and the last place. I even forgot my own place in the order. No, I mean... Fellas, I wasn't even part of the list. Oh? Were you not? Who cares, mate? There's 12 of us. Some people just fall out of their radar. Big deal. Let's just get on with it. Hey, you can't just disregard me like swatting away a fly. I'd guess somewhere around my level, maybe? Or Heathcliff's? Ishmael replied in a voice that had clearly lost all interest in this discussion. Ah, you're the sinner with the bizarre insectoid arm. We had no choice but to place you in the least favorite category of all researchers. Exceptions. Excuse me, I needed to cough for a moment. They really hate that, huh? In other words, you are a unique case that cannot be placed on a list or a scale. To do so would be irresponsible. I'd say you carry a certain potential. That, potential, is it? Does that mean I could also be first place if all goes well? It could very well be the reverse, given the definition of potential. Let not this query harrow your mind, Gregor. Your day will come. Feels funny, getting consoled by the guy who placed last. Alright. Last two cutscenes here. New classification codes. After some time passed. Next, we must discuss the classification numbers. We have been assigning risk levels for distortions, just as we have for abnormalities. The observation logs you have written for us were of great help, of course. My researchers struggled to parse the handwriting of certain sinners. However, it was good data all the same. We once had a 3-hour debate over a letter. Even that bloody governess gave up on trying to understand my handwriting. Heathcliff ground proudly and wiped the side of his nose. As you must all be aware, the current system of classification numbers has a rather significant oversight. Because abnormalities were creations of the former L Corp, our classification system had to be lifted whole from their system. However, the criteria by which the former L Corp measured the risk levels was the amount of their energy production. As a correlation of sorts, it was often the case that the more aggressive abnormalities produced more energy, but their destructive capabilities were not a part of the criteria despite the correlation. That is why certain abnormalities were assigned relatively lower risk levels, despite their potential to kill even multiple higher-ranking employees. They were an energy company at the end of the day. It makes sense that their priority would be to measure the energy output. God damn, my throat hurts. However, here, both abnormalities and distortions must be suppressed via direct confrontation. Thus, the former L Corp's classification system is rather incongruent with our purposes. I once heard someone say that we should be wary of people who drone on and on in the intro. Thus, it became necessary for us to reorganize the distortion's risk levels and classification codes. Wow, how interesting. So whose job is that going to be? I am rather taken aback by the naivety by which you asked me that question. Us. It's us. The centers without the right to refuse, was it? Wait a sec. Aren't you just offloading your own work onto us? A privilege given to researchers. Don't be so ignorant, yeah? This is all just in order to research the distortions, right? We gotta... The other way around, assistant. Oh, we've gotta do the research into distortions in order to solve them better. It's elementary shite. Hohenheim's really got you wrapped around his finger, you know that? According to LCB on-site investigative reasoning team leader, the progression of a distortion is much like that of a disease. The fate of an abnormality awaits at the end of the distortion phenomenon, after all. When a distortion progresses into an abnormality, all pre-existing individuality is erased, replaced with the totality of an abnormality. Thus, it is impossible to bring back a distortion that has already been transformed into an abnormality. It will no longer have that reversibility that they once had in the distortion phase. So a distortion like that Time Ripper fella will eventually become an abnormality too if left untouched? If you are referring to the subject HE7PI2001, then yes. It is simply a prediction, of course. Because that particular subject isn't contained here, I cannot say with absolute certainty that its progression into an abnormality will be observed. A correct assessment? Didn't Limbus Company collect the Time Ripper? We hoped we would, but T-Corp was very adamant about their claim over the entity, to the point where they refused to even sit at the negotiation table. I found their time-ripping ability quite fascinating, but sometimes I must know when to cut my losses, I suppose. Wait, so that EG something is the new classification code format? Indeed, because it is difficult to identify and observe the origin and shape of a distortion, we decided to forego that information and instead replace them with their sin affinities and the expected damage scale. Sin affinities. PI must refer to Tigrita, Sloth. It appears that the classification now mimics the classification of the Pekatula. They do indeed follow the same thought process. If we're being technical here, I wouldn't say it mimics it. It'd be more accurate to say that, as the Pekatula are at once the origin of the distortion phenomenon and its byproducts, the affinities can be transferred one-to-one. What's the expected damage scale? Combat capability, I'm guessing. I remember them saying that the risk levels were determined based on the enkephalin production rates, which is not the most meaningful information to us who have to fight them directly. It was a tad inconvenient to put a nebulous idea like combat capabilities into a singular numerical scale of power. Certain entities have idiosyncrasies and variables that make such a linear measures quite meaningless. So instead, we decided to measure the expected amount of damage that Limbus Company personnel might suffer should they engage these entities in battle. While this Time Ripper poses very little threat against the centers due to your idiosyncrasies, the unique nature of their weapon means they can immediately deal a nigh fatal blow to anyone from the LCC department with a single strike. That is why this distortion was given a rather high expected damage scale of 6, on a scale of 1 to 10. Please do note that this is not a perfect system, and these values are there only as references. Will this standard be applied to abnormalities as well? We have plans to do so, yes. Risk levels and expected damage scales will be coming before their classification codes. Speaking of which, I have something to show you all. What is it? What else other than the monolith? One of the highest potential values among Limbus Company's businesses. Thus, the development of transportation management and processing methodologies of the monolith is a glowing achievement indeed. The artifact, by its very nature, poses a great danger. I hesitate to embrace to use it so willingly. A great danger? But when you say that we are beset by danger at all times? The arbitrariness in deciding how dangerous something is comes from the degree to which it poses a risk. As you must already know, the monolith here is a device that can force a distortion. It is scattered throughout the city, just like the Golden Bough. At first only in possession of the fingers in the syndicates of the back streets, and now being collected by companies both large and small and nameless, like a plague. We also learned that they have become rather high-priority targets for some wings out there. As luck would have it, we managed to begin our research, expedition, and collection of the monoliths much earlier than most. Now we are already at the stage in which we may partake in the processing and sale of these artifacts, expanding our business ventures. You could say that we narrowly avoided the very unsavory fate of having to tussle with the wings for the possession of these artifacts. Because we may have had to confront the wings directly were that the case. Asking out of pure curiosity here, what would happen if we ever assigned a city threat level? Essie, how about we don't ask questions we don't ever want to find the answers to? I mean, what if we, to cut some contractual shenanigans, end up going against the associations? I think it'd be a good thing to know ahead of time, just in case. Seemed like a question worth entertaining to me. Let's see, from Canard to Star of the City, I suppose your assignment will be somewhere between Urban Plague and Urban Nightmare. Not SOC yet, are we? It almost sounds as if you want to be given a threat level. It's true that you, upon first sight, due to your vital powers and the potential of the identity technology, may appear to pose a rather troublesome risk. However, you have a very clear and obvious weakness. Indeed, all our advantages will be moot upon the manager's death. Hohenheim slowly turns around to look at me, prompting Faust and the other sinners to follow suit. What if we protected them, though? I'm impressed by your optimism, given the kinds of enemies you have faced thus far. We don't even need to go so far back in time to discuss the incidents with the fixer Siegfried, or Big Brother Ricardo I read from your reports. Did the third sinner suddenly seek to attack the manager with her full might? Do you truly believe the rest of you would be enough to protect them? No, the flow of this world is that the manager will be preserved, that no such thing come to pass. That's enough, Hohenheim. With any further divulgence, and Faust will open a disciplinary committee to discuss the consequences of your careless words. Not there yet, are we? Very well. Whichever is the case, you do have the potential to become a Star of the City threat at some time in the future. But do remember that it would be best if you could avoid that unfortunate designation. And please, don't forget that it's only true so long as you have Limbus Company's backing. Alright, we are on to the last one. And it's a dungeon. We are almost done. We're almost done with the regular checkup. Thankfully, God, my voice is killing me. Finally, we have a chance for you to overcome an adversity based on what you have learned thus far. And for me to prove my hypothesis. What hypothesis is he talking about? No need to worry, my hypotheses have never been wrong, most of the time. This experiment is entirely of my own design and supervision. And I will faithfully follow my own pure curiosities and instincts as a researcher. Guys, I have a feeling we're not gonna like where this goes. Now, do you see the monolith here? Yep, I do. That's a monolith, alright, but... don't you worry. My researchers will be the ones to activate the artifact. Activate the artifact? Not on you. Relax. Participant. I understand that none of you would be willing participants to this experiment. Sorry about that, I moved my mic away from my face a little. I swear, if you're gonna force us to destroy it, saying that we have no right to refuse or something, I'm gonna... Yeah, hang on, I can't let you do that, even as your assistant. Yes, but if you must, we are willing to send the weakest sinner among us for... Forget I said that. That was a foolish of me to say. I will be the subject of this experiment myself. You're going to distort yourself? Am I hearing you right? Are you curious to see what kind of distortion you'll end up becoming? I'm sure this is a question you have all entertained at least once. No, I ain't curious. I ain't a very pleasant experience either. Stop gritting your teeth like that, assistant. It will have an adverse effect on your long-term dental health. What if you end up just turning into a Pekatuum? You can end up becoming a Pekatuum like any of the other fodder we slaughtered our way through for the tests earlier. You're risking that? It is indeed a possibility. It would signify nothing more than my very own limitations. Just a mediocre shell. If such an incident comes to pass, these employees will transport me into a containment unit. We even made a bet on what kind of Pekatuum I would turn into. He bet on a Goulet, I on Nvidia, and her on... Tigriete. Tigritia. But how could you? Think about it like this. If I were to become a Pekatula, it would be akin to losing at a game of chance. Of course, what counts as a loss may depend on what I at that precise time consider to be losing. But the mere fact of turning into a Pekatula bereaves me of any value to life. I'd say he was being too hard on himself, but that felt like too simple an expression to describe his tone. This company would most likely attempt to transport me to a containment unit. I disagree with that decision. I would like you to dispose of me on the spot. I am well aware that I'm not the kind of congenital person who earns others' favors at first meeting, if at all. I also don't believe that our brief relationship has been the most amicable kind. Therefore, I see little reason why you would hesitate to cut me down. Of course, sinners of gentle hearts like this young Sinclair here may express certain distaste against this decision. But once I become a Pekatulum, it may as well mean that Hohenheim, the entity, has ceased to be. So I hope no unnecessary emotions like guilt clouds your judgment in killing the Pekatulum, a mere byproduct. But what if something unexpected happens? We're talking about your life here. Don't you have any manuals with backup plans, or... This is a very simple matter. Nothing more than a coin flip. Heads or tails. It appears that you're still insisting on your absurd 50-50 theory. I am a researcher who wishes to humiliate the field of mathematical statistics, unlike the general lay of the academia. I believe there's a certain romanticism to research. It is much more exciting to run as many tests and give as many samples as we can than to be stuck behind a desk, poring day and night over books and paper, isn't it? If it's tails, then you may dispose of me immediately, and the employees here will take care of the rest. Don't forget to destroy the key inside the coat pocket and the files inside my cabinets, for example. Yes, we remember. If I were to successfully distort, it would be halfway to success. For the first time, I am feeling quite the envy for you all. I wish I could be witness to my very own distortion. If you've been paying attention to my lectures, perhaps you even could have come up with a classification code for my distortion too, going by the standards we have discussed earlier. Not that I have a very high expectation that you would. I've recently come to a realization that people nodding along to my words is not a signifier of comprehension, but instead an expression of societal niceties. Then the manager here will open up the entrance to my dungeon of the Fathoms. And you will progress through the mirror dungeon as you have always done when facing a distortion, to reach into its deepest fathoms to face my distortion once again. I wish you the best of luck in your suppression efforts. Exit section. And once you've made it that far, it is likely that you will find me unconscious, or if luck would have it, conscious. Unconscious? Are you sure this is safe? A degree of case-by-case variance is to be expected. It may take some time for a full recovery, but it will happen should you succeed. That reminds me, that's how this bamboo-hatted Kim was brought back as well. Bamboo-hatted Kim? He's recovered? He is safely contained within our facilities. It seems they are ready to activate the monolith. I am confident that I, even as a distortion, will be quite the exceptional specimen. Hang on, just like that? You're not a Pekatu, Indeed, and I can still hear them. Yes, I remember. I still do. I know he'll be back, but gosh, this is pretty unnerving. Don't worry, we'll bring him back, no matter what. The manager says that we'll bring him back, no matter what. Sure sounds like a dependable sort, this manager of yours. Very well, please take a look at this. Is this a note? Did he write us tips on how to do this or something? He says that all you have to do is read what's on the note in front of his distortion. Apparently it's some kind of code. I don't think you'll hear anything but ticking noises from me. Can you read this, Merceau? It'll be done as you commanded. Merceau nodded, and then began to read the words from the note aloud. Lobotomy Corporation, 5 minutes. Potentiality, anticipation, right hand. The moment Merceau uttered them, the all-too-familiar portal began to appear around Hohenheim's distortion, as though they were a key to a door. Scattering shards of familiar yet alien sights appeared intermittently beyond the shimmering veil. Hohenheim had already entered the portal as he stood there gawking, but we could still hear his voice echoing through the laboratory. I suppose I'll be forced to share my past here. The past I never wanted to share. The past no one cares to learn about. It is something I must endure for the sake of this experiment, however. I need to expose every detail of it. It's all in the past now anyway, isn't it? Alright, let's see how this goes. Okay, we got a illusionary hun, or whatever that was. Illusory hun. Try something like that, maybe. Actually... Okay, so... how do I want to do this? I think I'm going to continue this and make it its own video, and end the other video after... before I start the dungeon, maybe? Let me check really quick. Or rather, I'll just make this its own video after the cut I made. So I'm gonna make another cut right now, and film an outro for that part. Good, it appears that I can censor these of my own will, at least to a degree. Your mission here is to classify my distortion, reach the end of the dungeon of the Fathoms, and bring me back. Your mission, however, does not involve digging into my past. It appears that we have a passing familiarity with this place. You, us. What is it that they seek to convey? I don't believe any level of threat or communication will be feasible, given that you are in a dungeon of the Fathoms. Well then do something about it. I regret to tell you that the setting of this dungeon is out of my hands. Had it been up to me, I would have manifested a place that was much more fascinating than this. Like that library fabled to have every book in existence. You used to work for Lobotomy Corporation? One of my past careers, yes. Us. Diplomacy did not seem to be an option here. The censored people brandished their weapons threateningly and stood in our path. Looks like we're gonna have to take them down if we want to make any progress here. It can't be helped. Let's get ready for a fight. Actually... before we get into this... oh yeah, I also switched to my... syncing team. Before we do this, I want to check in, see if any of my friends have their... Okay, I can get a... increased percentage on loot drops.
명단에 있는 놈들 모두 명단이다.
Because, yeah, I want to get as much loot from this as I can. Oh, which also means I should... Damn it, give me a minute.
금일 작업은
Which means I should do that as well. Which means I need a different sinking character I can use. Damn it, this is annoying. I don't really have anything worth a damn. So maybe I just shouldn't go sinking. I fucking use Faust and Eve song in almost everything. Let's try this, maybe.
발목 잡지 않도록 최선을 다할게요.
And we can get the burn ego gift here. That's really good for burn IDs. I think that looks good. This does have fluid sac as well.
탄피가 떨어질 때군요.
Alright, let's see how this goes. Censored L3HM. What kind of ego gear is this? Looks like Screaming Sheep ego gear.
단번에 끝낸다. 걷잡을 수 있다. 타올라. 소각되었습니다.
I do like the Lobotomy Corporation remix.
단번에 끝낸다. 괜찮아. 소각되었습니다. 소각되었습니다.
낙인을 새겨드립니다.
And victory. Fairly easy. Let's move on to the next event.
이런 건 얼마나 집중할 수 있냐에 따라 달렸지.
Okay, that seems like a really good ego guest.
탄피가 떨어질 때군요.
Let us continue onwards. So how do we know this guy actually distorted? He doesn't sound any different from his usual self. The sanity degradation due to distortion affects every subject differently. I mean, yeah, but censoring his own fathoms? But, Hohenheim, you're in a dungeon of the fathoms. We will see through it with Dante's powers whether you want to show us or not. You make a fair assessment. How about this, then? If you are to see them anyway, allow me to save you the trouble and give you a quick rundown instead. Come visit me as soon as you finish watching my tale. This tale began when that man walked into my library. Or laboratory, sorry. Yes, I had a personal laboratory all to myself. One of the few perks of being an elite researcher. This guy's telling the story however he wants to, huh, isn't he? Mr. Hohenheim. Let me think. I don't quite remember what he looked like. Something like this, perhaps? Whichever is the case, I was planning to censor his appearance anyway. I wanted to talk to you about something. Stop, are you here to express your displeasure with me? But what now? If you are, do not let me know from the get-go. I had a feeling it was about time this would happen. 3 months? Not a bad record for working without a workplace conflict. Oh, if this is about quitting, then you would find a much better audience among the human resources team. No, I mean, I'm just here to thank ya. They're picking me, some random dude from the back streets, to work here. I heard it was you who made the hiring decision. I don't know how to put this, but you're the only one who saw what's the word, yeah? My potentiality. You saw something that no one's cared to look into before. Know what I mean? But it had nothing to do with something so grandiose like his potentiality. A wing does not hire people from the backstreets for something so insignificant. While this information has never been publicly available, Lobotomy Corporation's main criterion was trauma. Candidates with horrible, insurmountable trauma were often favored by the company. And in an indirect way, it was only natural that they would begin to favor candidates who originally from the backstreets. Your greetings are acknowledged, Jimmy. So feel free to leave my office. I ain't Jimmy. Anyways, I've been meaning to ask, Mr. Hohenheim. Why do you always enjoy being alone? It may come as a surprise to you, but I am very apt at spending my time all on my own. It is one of the hundreds of distinguishing features that set me apart from ordinary men. He's just built different. Hey, don't you need someone to be like your royal right-hand man? My right hand is doing just fine, thank you very much. Do you believe in potentialities, Hohenheim? What an unrelenting, stubborn employee he was, even in hindsight. Thanks to you, I do, and I've been thinking, if I kept at it, one day I might even find myself living at large in a nest, changing my world little by little. I don't like how a thing like me managed to snag a position here at Lobotomy Corporation. So I'm thinking here that I want to stick around in your circle. To bring about such drastic changes to one's life is in the realm of feasibility for an exceptional researcher like myself indeed. But you are, like most of the rabble, painfully average in most qualities, and therefore unlikely to be the moving force in that change. I have no faith in universal things like potentialities. I have faith in myself and myself alone. Besides, I'm not very partial to mathematical statistics like the probability theory anyway. So I'd like to keep both my right and left hands as my own. Have a nice day. Want to know something about me? I'm the kind of guy who doesn't really think about things. Action before deliberation, you get me? Thoughtless and carefree. Possibly the only merit to be found in those who originate from the back streets. Or was that a thinly veiled threat of physical assault? No, I'm talking about the new Abno that just got shipped here. It's a tricky one to manage, I'll tell you what. It reads your mind, spring up all kinds of strategies or whatever as long as it's based on hard logic. Want to shoot for the Department of the Year award? Together? You seem to be rather skilled at the art of transactions. One of the few merits found in those who originate from the back streets. I will admit, I suppose I was overcome by certain ennui back then. And in hindsight, it was foolish of me to engage in such inane conversations. You, us. The remnants of my past come to haunt us. Perhaps it is I whom they truly wish to hurt.
이번에야말로 이 싸움을 끝내주겠어. 당신의 판단을 따를게요.
괜히 저항하지 말고 받아들여. 그게 덜 아플걸?
해체 억압 진행하겠습니다. 타올라라.
괜찮아. 이젠 안 아플 거야.
나아갈 수 없어. 완벽한 한 발을
해체 소각되었습니다.
Alright, then our next one is another event. Or actually, first more story. It's finally here, the Department of the Year award. Indeed, I've finally done it. With some minor assistance from you, of course, and some other employees. Come on, admit it. Didn't you notice that a lot more employees are saying hello, good morning, and what have you to you in the hallways compared to when your reputation was a bit, you know? It's because I'm just that good of a right-hand man. I will admit that your intuitive and spontaneous eye was of some assistance when it came to identifying certain observations among abnormalities. Oh, so that's why you chose Heathcliff. This is the potentiality I was talking about, man. The same thing you saw in me when you decided to get me on board. Apologies for ruining the moment, but the next few years quickly and busily flew by without much trouble. Of course, we picked up ourselves a few more Department of the Year awards, some promotions, and some collaborative researches. Yet all things must come to an end. The infamous fall of Lobotomy Corporation, for one. You... us. So I don't suppose you have any trouble hazarding what they're all telling me, even as the words came out all fragmented. Yeah, it's obviously you left us. There you go. Nothing but words of endless resentment. You left us behind. The fall of the former L Corp. I remember what Miss Yuri told us. The site crumbled in an instant, trapping the employees in there with the abnormalities. What is this sound? The whole structure is quaking. What the hell is... Initiating site burial in 100 seconds. Any remaining employees must immediately evacuate the structure. Counting down. 95, 94. The escape pods to the surface are here, but there's only one seat left. They're saying that the next one's in 5 minutes. Listen closely. At the risk of sounding rather callous, I must inform you that the chance of survival in cases of crisis such as this is usually granted only to a small minority of those affected. Some who prioritize the fairness of the process may settle on primitive methods such as drawing lots to see who gets to escape. And in more barbaric groups, the survivor would be decided by none other than the rule of might. However, I'm glad to find myself among those who are on the side of intelligence. So I make this argument, a suggestion before you. Compare yourselves, whose sole final purpose in life is clinging to your mediocre office jobs and making good on your debt payments. And me, who has produced several groundbreaking epochal theses and research results at such a young, early age. Whose life in your eyes is of greater worth? Yes, and that is how this tale ends. The compound collapsed 90 seconds later. I left the employees of my department behind and boarded the escape pod elevator and survived. How? How could you? Without even a hint of remorse? Wrath is a hideous emotion. I'm here today only because I have always maintained a cold, rational head. The L-Corp branch within Hohenheim's dungeon of the Fathoms begins to crumble. It almost appeared as though his heart was crumbling as well. Well, now that that's over, I invite you to come face me, the distortion. And the experiment will come to an end. But just finding and defeating his distortion in a fight, I don't think that'll bring him back. I just know it. I agree. We're still in deep waters here. This can't possibly be all there is to it. Yeah, there's still quite a bit left here. Oh, it's Fae Lantern. Well, that's kinda useless to me. I don't really use Rupture in this team.
벌써 화끈하네.
Onward we go.
해체 억압 진행하겠습니다.
보냈고 또한 용서할 테니.
상태 붕괴 확인.
낙인을 새겨두리.
And Sinclair is going to go
이
into
싸움을
his
끝내주겠어.
imperfect ego form.
순식간에 끝내죠.
일발장장 나오십니다. 고통 망설이면 나아갈 수 없어. 보냈고
Fairly easy there. Gonna try this elite battle.
이번에야말로
Oh, it's two of these guys at once.
끝내주겠어.
순식간에 끝내죠.
걷적일 수 없이 타올라.
Gonna do quite a lot of burn damage to him.
해체 억압 진행하겠습니다.
이 격정 속에서 타올라라.
한 번에 끝낸다.
일발장장. 망설이지 마.
And I believe... Uh-oh. Not what I wanted there. Should be dead this turn.
그쪽도 죄인인가? 격발 안심이다. 고통은 없어.
캐치 소각되었습니다.
And I believe we're on to another event space. And then the final boss.
무엇이든 맞출 수 있는 탄원이니 말입니다.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't really have any of those.
탄피가 떨어질 때군요.
And here we go onto the final boss fight. They arrived at the entrance to Hohenheim's laboratory. This may be my final order to you. Either suppress me and return safe and sound to where you came from, or fail the suppression. Place me in a containment unit, and perhaps I can observe what happens next. That's when Heathcliff suddenly strode forward. Hohenheim, you... Do you still believe in that potentiality? I do. It's what keeps me going. You only hire researchers from the back streets, don't you? I heard it from them earlier. They told me that you're a right pompous bloke, but thanks to you, they can continue to research and believe that there might be things in the world that's worth working towards. Alright, let's get this guy. Distorted Hohenheim. Interesting.
순식간에 끝내죠.
거적을 쓰고 타올라.
낙인을 새겨드리죠.
I do quite a bit of damage. I probably should have put my magic bullet ego on.
한 번에 끝낸다.
당신을 인도해주진 못해도 따뜻하게 안아줄 수는 있어요.
완벽한 한 발을 위해
죄인인가?
당신을
Here we
인도해주지
go.
못해도 따뜻하게 안아줄 수는 있어요.
야의 고통.
Unfortunate stagger. I think we get rid of his defense mechanism. Right.
한 번에 끝낸다. 괜히 저항하지 말고 받아들여. 그게
And he is staggered.
한 번에 끝낸다.
새겨드리죠.
당신이다.
And dead. Pretty easy, not bad. The escape pods to the surface are here, but there's only one seat left. They're saying that the next one's in 5 minutes. Look, I don't actually believe you hired me because you saw my potential or something like that. But I want to believe that you found the hope and potentialities because of me. A hope, an anticipation that we can make things better as long as we keep it. I can't leave you all behind. I can't just save my skin not without everyone. This is what a right-hand man does, isn't it? Take my potentiality you found and rise. Take it with you to the surface. But you, Johan, what about you? Well, maybe next time, some other time. Wrath is a hideous emotion. That is why I did nothing at the entrance of that branch. Only remembering, nothing more. Remembering the ones I've left behind. I can sense the dungeon of the Fathoms slowly beginning to close. Sometime later, I've returned, safe and sound. Welcome back, boss. To be frank, I once wished to be someone like yourself, Heathcliff. What are you talking about? We don't want Heathcliff to be like Heathcliff. Because it's not easy to put my faith, not in games of numbers, but in those slimmest potentialities of the world and continue to exist. I know it's not very befitting a researcher to be so, but isn't it quite the romantic attitude for a human to embody, is it not? Well, the experiment is over. It was a huge success, all thanks to us, right? No, it was a failure. I'd established this hypothesis that the sole answer was to hold a firm belief in the self and nothing else. Had my hypothesis been correct, I would have remained a distortion. Thus, I would like to extend my gratitude to all of you. Thank you for making me fail. It seems that the classification for my distortion was HE5SU. Disappointingly mediocre, but I don't suppose it can be helped. The world is a place where we must find the ray of potentiality among the mediocre, after all. Let us move on now. Mephistopheles is prepared to depart. Hohenheim's researchers waved at us. We'll meet again, right? You, no thank you. Everything has an end, so do consider this to be our final meeting. Stand to the last exchange, this guy. The last thing we saw before the portal activated were the LCB researchers pushing up their glasses in our general direction. Though I'd only taken a step or two, the entire world around us seemed to transform, landing us back inside the transportation instrument. Now that I think about it, we didn't even get to learn why Gregor's bones made those cracking noises. All we learned from this experience is that the sinners have all become mediocre, but they each held certain potentialities within themselves. Each of us mulling over the events at the LCB, we returned to the bus where Sharon and Virgilius were waiting for us. And is that it?
관리자님이 명하는 것이라면 탄원은 어디든 무엇이든 누구든 관통해냅니다. 설령 사랑하는 사람일지라도.
Looks like it. Let me quickly just grade out for those. Anyway, that is where I'm going to leave it off for today's episode. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time with something else. So until then, bye!